Queen Elizabeth I was more than just a queen. She was a living legend. She proclaimed herself the Virgin Queen. Draped in elegant, jewel-encrusted gowns, she ruled with keen intellect and unwavering authority. People remember her for her powerful court, beating the Spanish Armada and making England a strong Protestant country. Beneath the layers of dazzling beauty, beneath the heavy makeup and gleaming pearls, was a woman consumed by fear, pride, and obsession. She was deeply concerned with how others perceived her, but when it came to cleanliness, things took an unusual turn. Back then, hygiene wasn't about health. It was all about appearances. Queen Elizabeth transformed the moment into a theatrical display. She believed that drinking water could make her ill. She was so terrified of aging that she treated her body as something sacred, untouchable, immune not just to time, but even to the touch of soap. In this video, we'll reveal 5 of the strangest and most surprising things Queen Elizabeth I did to keep herself clean. And trust us, the final one will leave you speechless. Elizabeth battled a powerful addiction: sugar. In those days, sugar was a luxury few could afford. It was rare, costly, and journeyed from distant lands to reach our tables. Most people may never experience it in their lifetime. But for the Queen of England, it was ever present. She didn't simply enjoy sweets, she reveled in them. Her royal feasts overflowed with candied violets, sugar-dusted fruits, delicate almond marzipan, and decadent desserts drenched in syrup. To possess sugar was a symbol of status. Elizabeth didn't merely consume it, she flaunted it as a testament to England's rising power and prosperity. But here's the shocking truth. This sweet obsession carried a devastating price. In the 1500s, dental care was rudimentary, toothbrushes were coarse, and most people cleaned their teeth using twigs, cloth rags, or crushed eggshells. The Queen, however, relied on her own unique concoction, a homemade toothpaste crafted from sugar and herbs. Yes, sugar. The very ingredient that was decaying her teeth was the same one she trusted to clean them. To make it worse, she also used gritty powders that scratched away her tooth enamel. Over time, her once royal smile turned into something shocking. Foreign visitors took note. By the 1590s, her teeth were blackened, broken, or missing altogether. Her breath was reportedly so foul that it made those nearby visibly uncomfortable, and at times, her words were difficult to decipher as she spoke through a mouth ravaged by decay. Yet she refused to let doctors pull them out. Elizabeth was known to be stubborn and terrified of pain. To convince her it wasn't deadly, one of her courtiers even volunteered to have a tooth pulled in front of her. Imagine that, someone willingly screaming in agony just to get the Queen to open her mouth. But perhaps the strangest part was what happened next. Instead of ridiculing her decaying teeth, the noble women of her court began to imitate her. They deliberately blackened their own teeth with soot and charcoal, adopting the Queen's distinctive appearance. In her court, even tooth decay became a mark of status. If the Queen's teeth were blackened, then black teeth signified beauty, power, and affluence. The darker your smile, the greater your wealth. In a world where every action of the Queen set the standard for fashion, even decaying teeth became the height of desirability. Such was the influence of royalty. You may have heard the startling claim, "I bathe once a month whether I need it or not." Some attribute this remark to Queen Elizabeth I, while others dismiss it as mere legend. Either way, it reveals how people in the 1500s viewed cleanliness, and just how unusual their practices seem compared to ours today. Back then, water was considered dangerous. People believed it could spread illness, weaken the body, and allow in harmful air, what they called miasma. This invisible poison was believed to spread deadly diseases like the plague. For many, bathing was considered unhealthy, a dangerous risk. As a result, even Queen Elizabeth chose to avoid it. Instead of washing with soap and water, she followed a different routine. She would change her linen underclothes, called shifts, often several times a day. People believed the soft fabric could draw sweat, dirt, and toxins from the skin. No water required, only a clean piece of cloth. When she freshened up, her handmaids gently dabbed her skin with rose water, vinegar, or herbal blends crafted by the royal apothecaries. The ritual was slow and deliberate, performed not for cleanliness, but for the sake of appearances. Her body was handled more like a sacred artifact than a living person. Perfection was demanded no matter the cost. Why not just take a real bath? Because that was no simple matter. Her palaces lacked plumbing. There was no running water. If she desired a bath, it required hauling out a massive wooden tub, heating countless buckets of water, and summoning at least 3 servants to pour, stir, and ready everything. The process resembled orchestrating a royal ceremony. Bathing was a rare luxury, not a daily routine, and yet people called her clean. She draped herself in hundreds of gowns, each crafted from the finest silk and velvet. The air around her always carried the scent of flowers and exotic spices. She kept perfumed gloves and delicately scented handkerchiefs, insisting that every detail of her appearance be immaculate, flawless from head to toe. All of this merely created the illusion of cleanliness, not true sanitation. There was no scrubbing, no rinsing, no soap. Elizabeth didn't shun bathing out of laziness or neglect. She avoided it because too much reality threatened to shatter her carefully crafted image. Water could smudge her white makeup, blurring the mask she wore. It could dissolve the illusion, revealing the softness beneath. It could make her human. But in her mind, a queen was never meant to be human. Queen Elizabeth's face is among the most iconic in history. White as porcelain, smooth as marble, and cold as stone. Yet this was not her true skin. Each day she wore a mask, meticulously painted not for beauty, but as a display of power. In her era, pale skin was a symbol of wealth, status, and even divine favor. The fairer your complexion, the higher your place in society. The queen, determined to outshine them all, took this obsession to the extreme. She didn't simply wear makeup, she crafted a legend with it, a flawless version of herself, untouched by age or frailty. Her favorite weapon was Venetian Suze, a lethal blend of white lead and vinegar. It created a flawless look, hiding every blemish, scar, and shadow. But underneath, it was eating her alive. This poison soaked into her skin, causing rashes, open sores, and long-term scarring. As her real face was slowly destroyed, she simply added more layers of makeup, thicker and thicker, until her appearance became a frozen mask. But it didn't stop there. For her lips, she used bright red colors made from mercury, one of the most toxic substances on Earth. The more she used it, the sicker she became. Her mood changed, her memory faded, her body weakened, her hands sometimes trembled. These are unmistakable signs of mercury poisoning. Yet the queen had no idea she was slowly poisoning herself each time she painted her face. So why did she continue? Because her face wasn't just her own, it belonged to England. Her image was her authority. It made her appear ageless, godlike, untouchable. She never permitted painters to capture her true features. Instead, artists were required to use official templates, replicating her youthful visage from earlier portraits. No matter how many years passed, her image remained unchanged, youthful, flawless, eternal. She refused to be seen in natural light, relying on candles and shadows to conceal the truth. In her final years, her face grew so fragile that people whispered a single touch might shatter her makeup. She scarcely washed her face. Why would she? To wash it away was to shatter the illusion, exposing the vulnerable, aging woman beneath the mask of the Virgin Queen. Did she realize the makeup was poisoning her? Historians still argue the point, but one thing remains certain. She chose the mask over her own well-being. She was willing to destroy her body to keep the legend of Gloriana alive. To truly understand Queen Elizabeth's approach to hygiene, you must first grasp her deepest fear, losing control. Every detail, her painted face, perfumed gloves, and meticulously selected scents, was not merely about appearance. It was a means of maintaining power and concealing vulnerability. In her era, bathing was more than uncommon. It was perilous. People feared that water could transmit disease, and to bathe was to expose oneself, both physically and symbolically. Bathing was considered indulgent, intimate, and even hazardous. And Elizabeth, having seen her mother, Anne Boleyn, destroyed by the court, refused to show any sign of weakness. To her, nakedness meant vulnerability. She shunned water, instead creating her own rituals of cleanliness, bathing in perfume and ceremony rather than exposing herself to the world. Every day, she enveloped herself in rich, sweet fragrances. Her maids crafted rose water, blended lavender oil, prepared vinegar infusions, and brewed herbal concoctions in the palace's still rooms. These liquids were never intended to cleanse the skin. Their purpose was to mask odor, to conjure an illusion of freshness. A few drops behind her ears, a gentle swipe across her wrists, a perfumed handkerchief hidden in her sleeve. Thus adorned, she would glide through the court like a living bouquet, untouched by any trace of human scent. She carried pomanders, delicate, ornate spheres filled with fragrant herbs and resins, tucked discreetly within her dress or dangling from her belt. Whenever an unpleasant odor drifted near, she would raise a pomander to her nose, inhaling the carefully crafted sanctuary she had created for herself. These objects weren't merely for comfort. They sent a clear message. I am not like you. I do not reek like the rest of the world. Even her clothing became part of the performance. Her gloves carried delicate perfumes. Her handkerchief was steeped in fragrant oils, and her dresses were layered and stiff, crafted to conceal her form and capture every scent. She was renowned for gifting scented gloves to her courtiers, a token not of her touch but of her carefully curated image. Her hair was seldom washed, as washing was considered risky, particularly for someone who wore such heavy makeup. Instead, her natural hair was stiffened with a mixture of sugar water and egg whites, then dusted with powder. As she grew older and her hair thinned, likely the result of years of lead and mercury poisoning, she turned to wigs, favoring auburn ones to maintain her image. Yet beneath the layers of powder and perfume, her body was slowly deteriorating. Years of toxic makeup had left her skin scarred, thin, and blistered. Rumors spread of peeling skin, open sores, and a face too damaged to touch, and yet she kept painting it thicker and thicker. She even banned mirrors from her private rooms. No one was allowed to see the truth, not even herself. She had a servant whose sole duty was to powder her shoulders in secret, ensuring no one ever glimpsed her true skin. Elizabeth had become a captive of her own illusion. Bathing wasn't merely avoided out of inconvenience, it was shunned because it meant erasing the mask. To wash the body was to confess its age, its frailty, its humanity. Elizabeth had devoted her life to persuading the world she was something greater. In her final years, she carried a perfumed walking stick. When she passed odorous courtiers, she would lift it to her nose, not merely to shield herself from their scent, but to declare, I am the queen. I do not belong to your world. Her body was no longer merely flesh and bone. It had become the embodiment of the crown itself. Perfection was demanded, even at the cost of concealing the truth beneath the surface. For Elizabeth, cleanliness was never about health. It was about remaining untouchable. From the outside, Queen Elizabeth of Fura's palaces appeared like heaven on earth. Towering stone walls, gilded ceilings, plush velvet carpets, and grand halls, alive with music and shimmering silk. Yet step beyond the royal facade, and you'd discover a world far less enchanting. There were no toilets, no sinks, no plumbing. That's right. Behind all the splendor, the Queen lived in a world that reeked like a sewer. Her most private toilet was an ornate wooden chair known as a close stool. On the surface, it appeared elegant, but beneath the cushion lay nothing more than a ceramic pot for collecting waste. This pot required frequent emptying, thorough cleaning, and generous perfuming several times a day. Remarkably, this task wasn't delegated to a servant. It was carried out by someone with royal authority, the groom of the stool. Don't be misled by his job title. This man was far more than a janitor. He was a trusted noble, handpicked for his loyalty and discretion. His duties extended well beyond assisting the Queen with personal needs. He helped her dress, managed her private affairs, and at times was privy to confidential political discussions. In the peculiar realm of the Tudor court, proximity to the Queen during her most intimate moments meant proximity to power. Yet beyond her chambers, the palace was far less refined. There were no flushing toilets, only chamber pots, buckets, and bowls shared by all for their waste. These wastes were discarded into cesspits concealed beneath floors or just outside the palace walls. The unpleasant task of cleaning and removing this refuse was assigned to men known as gong farmers, or night soil men. At night, they hauled buckets of human waste through shadowy corridors and cramped stairwells, careful not to spill a drop as they emptied the foul contents into open trenches. The stench was overwhelming, clinging to them long after the task was done. To mask the smell, the palace burned fragrant herbs, lavender, rosemary, and sweet marjoram. People scattered fresh flowers across the floors and spread straw or rushes soaked in scented oils, hoping to trap and conceal the lingering odor. But these rushes were rarely cleaned. Beneath them, dirt, hair, crumbs, and rot accumulated, forming a hidden layer of filth. Even the Queen couldn't escape the stench. She moved her court from palace to palace, not just for politics, but to flee the pervasive odor. The longer she lingered in one place, the more the waste piled up. No amount of perfume could mask the truth for long. This was the real face of royal life, a world draped in gold and velvet on the surface, but rotting with decay and disease beneath. A place where power mingled with squalor, where England's most formidable woman waged a daily war against the stench of her own realm. Queen Elizabeth's reign was no accident. She governed with cunning, flair, and a mastery of illusion. Her approach to hygiene was not neglect, it was a calculated choice. Every skipped bath, every drop of rose water, every powdered wig was part of a grand performance. In a world where a woman's strength could be torn apart in a single rumor, Elizabeth made herself into something untouchable, ageless, and beyond human. She knew the truth. To bathe was to risk everything. Water threatened the mask. It could wash away her power. A bare face might invite judgment. An aging body revealed could shatter the illusion she had spent decades perfecting. So instead she powdered, she perfumed, she painted, she posed. And in doing so, she became a legend. Elizabeth may not have met today's standards of cleanliness, but she was immaculate by intention. In her era, soap and water were not symbols of health. They were dangers to authority. She didn't merely endure. She perfected the art of being visible yet unknowable. Ultimately, her true purity was never on her skin, but in her carefully crafted image. And for a queen, image was everything.